Very simply, the reason you are not closing as much, the reason why your customers are not showing up as much, and the reason why you guys are struggling to get sales is because of multiple things. One, it's likely that you guys don't have a proper sequence once someone's booked into a calendar. And two, it's that your sales process is basically just, hey, let's meet, and then your call two or call threes end up being the week longs, and there's nothing in between that's really keeping the prospect warm or whatever it may be. So we've seen, like, I personally have roughly like a 95% show up rate. I have clients that when they implement the system, particularly when they do the full hammer them strategy, and shout out Jeremy Haynes, shout out Nelson Wang for those two respective in their domains. Jeremy Haynes on the direct outbound side. Primarily he's a paid media kind of guy, but really, really good. Nelson Wang on partnerships. But these frameworks we've applied for some of our clients, and they've seen really, really good results. So let me dive a little bit deeper. So we built this with Claude, right? And so essentially what the full system looks like from start of sale to close. And the goal here is, of course, to get a higher close rate, right? A higher show up rate to the first call and secondary calls. And thirdly, it's to also keep the prospect as warm as possible, right? And especially in the competitive sense. When you're dealing with more enterprise level customers, it's very, very important. So, the problem that you're going to face is that a lot of calls get booked, and most companies will start straight there. And so the AE starts at basically zero trust. And so the goal here is, how can we, from the education call, it's not a sales conversation. AE spends most of the time answering questions that should have been pre-answered already beforehand before the call. And sometimes you'll have situations like, I have people who go through our confirmation page and or emails, be like, hey, I just haven't had a chance to see it. Okay, cool, high level overview. This is what we do, bada bada bing, and then we go straight to discovery, which is a whole separate kind of sales process thing that they don't really teach in corporate as well. But something that hopefully you can mitigate as much as possible for the first call. And then the buying committee, right? You ideally, let's say, for example, the VP change manager replied to the email. AE has this in one thread, right? The CFO has never met you, right? The IT lead never met you, and the chief policy officer never met you, right? So how can you then thread those other people who are going to be the stakeholders in those enterprise level conversations to then, get connected at the beginning, but then start touching on them and going whatnot. And we'll touch on this a little bit deeper later when we see the full scope. I want to explain the actual fundamental framework. And so the implication of this is that, call one, the discovery is the buyer is curious, but they're not convicted, right? The AE is still a stranger. They're not another one of your competitors. Stakeholders are added. CFO will get looped in, but it's cold. IT leads add to evaluate, each reset, trust at zero again, and you're trusting on your champion, which is ideally I wouldn't say ideally, the champion of like the VP change management to really actually sell for you, which is the biggest bottleneck you'll find like most of these multi-thread kind of deals, is actually the fact that unless you properly build connections and multi-thread yourself, you're going to find a lot of big difficulty in terms of your champions, unless you teach or coach them properly and have been to the ringer enough to actually properly educate the other stakeholders to make them feel convicted the same way you're trying to convict the VP change management, for example. And then using references of validation, the proposal stage, right? There's check you out somewhere, competitor getting the same kind of treatment as you. Proposal stage, budget objection surfaces cold. IT raises integration concern. Deal stalls are I don't know, so reciprocity, deal stalls, whatever. Procurement, and then closes, if it closes, right? At a average ACV, you might get discounted down. A blamed for the low sales cycle. You have this forecast for Q2, ends up being Q4 deal because of whatever reasons, right? And so, the problem you're going to face here is a low show up rate. Calls are not prioritized, and so no investment in understanding it before showing up, especially for deals that are going to be more so nice to haves. Like, unless you have a really, really urgent budget cycle, which is only really prevalent in like the education / government sector. Sometimes you have people who have budget cycles that are doing it for the fiscal year that you can kind of get away with. But realistically, like, a lot of them can get the deals done as fast as possible. Like, if you had to save your family from, like, let's say you had to come up with 10K and you had to save your family tomorrow, right? Like, you'll find a way to get 10K. It's the same thing where it's like, all right, obviously it's not that extreme at that level, but it should fundamentally help you shift your mind to be like, okay, if it's possible, there's nothing physically stopping them, then it's very possible to move these deals faster. And so, these education calls versus it being more of like a consultative / implementation call in that aspect. Like, I've noticed, like, when I have these calls for ourselves now where people have gone through the flow, it's so much better because now it's like, okay, what's your problem? How do we solve it? Versus like, hey, this is what we do. And then, no surprise objections, right? They're all surfaced on the final call when it's too late to kind of restructure everything, especially when multiple stakeholders or multiple like partners in this level of deal. And long cycle, low average order value, it's a whole mess, right? And so the solution here is this is on the outbound side. We're going to touch on the partner side as well, the partner thread, but particularly, right, and we'll dive at the top, but the call gets booked, right? And then 5 channels activate immediately, not after the call, the moment the call is booked. And this is from obviously more people who are like 10 million plus, who are running multi-channels aspects. I would honestly say maybe it's a 50 million plus kind of strategy, but ideally if you do 10 million plus, you'll be way ahead of the curve, and you'll your close rate will go significantly higher, and your ACV and your margins, everything will go higher. Prospect, 15 to 20 unique impressions, 30 to 50 pieces, every impression a different piece of content. Prospect arrives convicted. And so, quadrant run, you'll have like, 4 quadrants, right? And so the question is, what does the platform do? How long is onboarding? What does the adoption dashboard show? At least for the example, change management SaaS software. Second layer question, how does it integrate with other solutions? Does it have IT to build something? Any objections, any expectations? And so, what the emails look like up to, 6 a day, right? And so it depends, right? Like I have people who, when we were doing like 3 a day, right? People were like, all right, dude, this is way too much. So we bumped it down to 2 a day. It didn't get that many flag. Test it out in your market, right? The idea is like, okay, if someone gets pissed over you educating them and you just brief them as educating them, right? Like I don't see that too much of a problem. Sometimes they'll make comments about it, but realistically, they open the email, right? You're tracking open rates, and if they're opening the email, that means obviously and they're coming to the call still, then obviously something's working. If it's not, you notice a dip in rate, or people really complaining or whatever, like then just kind of bring it down, right? Test it around, but up to 6 a day. More than 6 a day is kind of crazy, in my opinion. But pre-call brief, any sort of pre-call assets, any sort of like objection handling, case studies, champion emails. And so then also doing LinkedIn, right? Connecting with other people as well. And then, getting engaged in the network, right? So another thing is like, again, we're talking more enterprise level deals, but like, let's say mid-market level deals as well, where it takes a little bit longer than like 2-3 months, commenting on their posts, right? Just being present in their ecosystem. And then paid targeting, right? The audience is live on day one. Paying specific creative towards them, IT targeted ad, CFO targeted ad, run through and close it. Ideally, if you're a software, you already have ad creatives already done for this. This is not our domain expertise, but Jeremy Haynes is a great resource to reach out to and look at. Fantastic group. And then Video Looms as well, just face, voice, trust, where it's like, all right, like post call recap, they kind of go into what they expected. It makes it very human, not transactional. It shows you care, you give a shit, to be honest. Like, I don't know how else to say it, but like, you are competing at this level typically with a lot of other stakeholders. Show that you fucking give a shit. Like, I don't know how to say it enough. Like, all the deals we've won, I've actually personally recorded a Loom video or spoke with the person for like literally 20 minutes after like before, not even on an official call, just like talking with them about certain things and objection handling and just recapping. Like, you have to really care about the prospect, especially for these mid-market enterprise level deals where it's like, okay, sure, you spend like an extra 20-30 minutes. Okay, shoot, dude, like that's an extra 200, 300 plus K in annual revenue. Like, let's win the deal. And so, it's one of those things where it's very easy to say, but motivating your AEs and sales reps to do it, you got to have killers who want to do it. And so, so also phone calling as well. Obviously, don't be too much, but like, had a thought, has it done with 2 people before? A proactive objection call, any sort of decision call, be on the phone the moment they decide, not waiting on an email thread. Huge thing, bam, fam, book a meeting from a meeting. It's a sales cardinal sin if you do not do this. Do this, please. I'm very surprised, right? Because, I experienced as a corporate, right, where I'd be in like sitting in some meetings when I first started, and people were like, yeah, like let's you let us know when we can revisit the conversation again. Why? Why would you trust them to let you know? They're not going to let you know. They get busy. You are priority number 78 for them. So second part of the solution is actually the partner thread. And so this is more so like, okay, from a direct outbound side, what can you do to make sure you're top of mind in that sales process to win the deal? Now, from a solution, a partner aspect, right? Where, you know, this audience is likely more sophisticated than some. Partners help you get higher close rates, higher show up rates, refer you more deals. It's just a net overall positive in the most part. And so, and lower customer acquisition cost, right? And so, let's say the second part of the solution, right, is like the AE starts at zero, right, versus a partner, right, who might have multiple contacts. So if we look at trust as a continuum, from 0 to 100, if you're cold outreaching a stranger, you're like trusted maybe like zero, depending on how many case studies you have, maybe starting at 10, 20. If you're having a trusted advisor recommend you, you're starting at roughly like 50, 60, 70. Because now it's someone else, a third party who they know they benefit, but at the same time, they also understand that they don't want to risk their own top line or relationship on referring something that's going to do something bad for them. Like, people aren't dumb, right? So, a partner who refers you, you start at a higher level of trust. And so when you go through the sales cycle, you actually get not only deals done quicker because of that, but a lot of the BS you would have to do, I wouldn't say BS, but like a lot of stuff you have to do, you can actually minimize or even don't have to worry about some of this stuff because you're not having to work from zero. And so like this, using like the change management software, for example, right? VP change management, reply to your email, E has this, blah, 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 versus like an existing relationship the partner might already have, where it's like, okay, like, they've been advising the CFO for months. They know the budget, the politics, the competing priorities. Like, this is exactly what happened with one of the deals I had when I was when I was an AE, right? Like, we actually sourced the deal ourselves, and it wasn't a huge deal, right? It wasn't a huge deal by any means, but like, I don't even want to say the amount. I don't think I can. But like, yeah, we sourced the deal ourselves, right? One of our SDRs sourced the deals. We had a discovery, and we were partner led only, so we were like, okay, like what partners do you guys use? And so like, oh, we work with this company and this company. Oh, we actually work with this company for other projects. Like, oh shoot, because that was one of our best partners that we worked with, and specifically, when we started working with that partner, it's like, oh, I know these guys. Like, I went to like high school with these guys. Like, oh, cool, right? Obviously, a coincidence. Not all the partners you have are going to go to high school with their prospects, but at the same time, like, it's a leverage connection, and they did millions of dollars of business with this guy. So what ended up happening was actually we found out who our competitors were, what price point they're at, what price point we had to be under, and we not only won one deal, but we were able to cross sell to multiple product lines because of them. And through that process, like, the intelligence flows back to us. We understand, excuse me, everyone that like was part of the process and what had to be done. So, I mean, one of the biggest factors in a sales process, people always like harp on, like, in the outbound space, is okay, intent signals, intent signals, intent signals. Sometimes intent signals in the beginning are great, right? Like, because it's like, okay, the deal's active now. But there's a second layer of intent signals, which is within the deal and within the actual political organization of which you're trying to buy into, right? If you could understand that you're supposed to be selling to the CRO, but you had connections to the CEO of what he expected of the CRO, and this tying then being like, okay, this will help the CRO achieve that X outcome, and that CEO was going to be happy as a consequence of this. How much more powerful is that intelligence versus just knowing the intent signal of, oh, like, they use HubSpot, for example, right? And they just bought HubSpot. Like, okay, cool. But like, there's like levels of layers of intelligence you can leverage through this process of partners, which not only helps you at the top of the funnel, but helps you in the middle funnel significantly, which I think is severely underrated, especially in the startup space, SMB, and like lower mid market space, where you don't really understand that, like, for these level of deals, how powerful a partner can really be. And so, when we look at the discovery aspect of it, right? The VP mentions, the advisory, advising on the rollout. AE's like, oh, we work with them on certain things, blah, blah, blah. Partner gets briefed. They know the entire thing, what not to do. Don't worry about pricing, no primary vendor positioning, right? Partner talks to them independently, gets them to actually understand what's happening. Find some flags. Partner calls the AE. Literally, I'm telling you, like, this is obviously made by Claude, but dude, I'm telling you, this has literally happened to me in lifetime. Phase to Q3, Q4. She approves from 2 budget lines. They're caring about X, Y, and Z. If you come under this number, like we'll be good for this deal, but remove this certain portion. Like I'm telling you, it's so crazy. It's how powerful it is. And so the superpower here is that you thread the committee. AE talks to the VP of change management. Partner has dinner with the CFO. Not the same conversation, not interchangeable. Partner threads the entire buying committee while AE runs the top line. 2 threads become 5, no single point of failure. And the superpower 2 is the surface of real objections. And so, like, again, like this stuff is great for the top of the funnel. This stuff is great for the top of the funnel and in the middle of the sales process as well, where it's like it's continually helping and engaging and keeping that trust be warm. But what you'll find is that typically, if you run a pure outbound only strategy, that you're gonna have to face the objections through the calls, right? Sometimes you can have the partners pre-handle those objections off the screen. And so you don't have to worry about each call individually or each hoping they see some of this stuff, they open the emails or they interpret it the right way. Like now this outbound stuff is coming to points of interpretation of how they're going to interpret your kind of objection handling, your case studies or whatever it may be, right? But the partner who's like technically like a third party neutral telling them that this is the case and they shouldn't have to worry about this. Oh my God. And when you loop those two together, where it's actually ammunition to where it helps the partner's case, where it's like, okay, because sometimes, right, like they also understand partners trying to make a buck. And so, when the partner's like, oh yeah, like this actually gives them ammunition because sometimes partners, they're not going to know how to sell for you properly. And so, like, if you can arm your prospects with the information, but you have the partners be the transformation of how they can manipulate that information into the end result, that's really all it is. Because partners realistically are more often than not are smart enough to actually communicate the transformation they're going to get from it, but they sometimes lack the sufficient information to actually and the information aspect of like memorizing to actually inform the prospect of what needs to be informed. And so the consequence, right? If it's a cold deal, a call gets booked, reminder email sent, nothing else. Days 1 through 30, the discovery, stakeholders added, references requested, trust built from scratch, right? If you get a reference objection, it's because you haven't built enough trust in the sales process. I know this is when I was first starting my agency, right? Like I got a lot of reference objections. And then so I started filming case studies, right? I had people refer me it comes from a value of not presenting value or not a whole showcasing your value. And so day 30 to 45 is budget objection, services called proposal call, IT raises integration, repricing starts, procurement, blah, 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 close. Day 90 close, right? With omnipresence and partners, right, where they're getting hit up in multiple channels, right, where you're omnipresent, you're known, you're top of mind. The partner, a third party, is not only talking about what your solution does, but the dream benefits and helping you throughout the sales process for intel to know when you have those conversational moments, those pivotal moments of those calls, knowing what to stay on track of, knowing what to actually avoid, and who to play in that game. Is the game of chess, right? You're talking to humans, keep it blunt, real, but it is chess at the end of the day. So you're gonna notice, right, like those impressions lands, partners briefed, CFO thread opens, and then eventually the intent level call, partner serves the CFO budget constraint before the proposal, AE restructures to phased payments, right? Objection handled proactively, proposal sent specific to, whatever it may be. They close rate's gonna be higher, the lower customer acquisition cost. There's no surprise objections. The partner's on the call with them, co-selling. One sentence closes the budget question. And so, right, like the same deal, same EE, same product, same prospect, half the time, higher ACV, no surprises. The difference is not talent. It was whether the trust was built before the first call or during it. And so when we look at the full system start of sale to close, we look at the email portion of it, right? The pre-call briefs, the case studies or whatnot's being sent, the post-call recaps. Then based on call one, the call two, between call two, what does that look like in terms of objections they brought up and kind of preempting that, doing proposal framing, champion, the champion email, right? LinkedIn, doing that LinkedIn portion, Meta, doing that custom video, the phone, the partner gets briefed, they talk, the intel call, right? They restructure it, they help set up with the ROI framing. It's just, you're going to have a much better sales process doing this, right? So at the end of the day, the goal here is to win more deals at a lower customer acquisition cost at a higher price point. That's how you increase top line revenue. It's all pricing. So hopefully this is valuable. More than happy to share more information on this. But yeah, thanks.